What's going on, adventurers? I am back with my buddy Daniel. We just had dinner and we're enjoying a cold beer and just hanging out and having story time. So today we're just going to talk about our most recent adventure, which was going down and killing some pigs.
So it was really fun because it was Father's Day weekend, and so I have 3 young kids, and it's hard for me sometimes to get out and hunt, but for 2 weekends in a row, with it being kind of around Father's Day, I was able to. So you guys heard, obviously, the last weekend where we went down to Pliny's lease. And then this weekend, I've got a good friend of mine who I've gotten into shooting recently in the last couple of months. And actually, as I was preparing, sighting in my 270 to make sure it was on point for our hunt down in South Texas, he came out with me. And it was his first time ever shooting rifles. And so he shot my 270. He shot the 6.5 Creedmoor. And I was telling him what we were about to go do. He's like, dude, I can't wait to go hunting. He's like, I've only shot paper now twice. He'd only been shooting twice. And I want to like hunt and shoot at a live target. So anyway, Pliny and I go down 2 weeks ago. We had a good adventure, which if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. And then I was thinking, hey, what if we went and did a pig hunt on Father's Day weekend? So I texted Pliny. I'm like, hey, man, do you know any good places around here where we can do it for relatively cheap? And you had a guy up in Hillsboro.
Yeah.
And so you sent him a note, and he said, sure, if you guys want to come down Saturday. So I texted my buddy Jonathan. I'm like, hey, man, you want to go pig hunting? And he was thrilled. He was super excited. So the funny thing about Jonathan, he hates pigs. Like, he doesn't eat pork. He's never eaten pork, and he just does not like pigs. So he's like, yeah, dude, I want to go kill some pigs. Like, that sounds like a great plan. So I went and picked Jonathan up Saturday. Well, actually, Saturday was my daughter's birthday, so we had a party for her, which was fun. And then that morning, did all that. In the afternoon, I went and picked up Jonathan about, I think, 2:30, 3 o'clock. Swung over to Pliny's house, and this is kind of where the adventure, if you will, kind of started. Parked outside of Pliny's house, and this group of guys is out there, and they're like, hey, I'm dressed in all camo. They're like, hey, are you guys going hunting?
And they were just like working on a car or something, right?
They were just hanging out there working on the car. And so we ended up striking up a conversation with them. And so this is all in Dallas. And the guy's like, man, I work for the city of Dallas. And I can't remember. I think it's for like the water department or something like that.
Something, yeah.
And he's like, down by the river down there off 20, there's just pigs everywhere. He goes, y'all don't need to go that far. You can actually get a special permit. And we've got cameras out there, and we just see herds of them. You get a special permit to go down there and shoot them. And so Pliny and I talked to him for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes and had a good conversation.
I got to get this figured out because it sounds like an awesome bow hunting spot. Just sneak around, not too far.
It's like 30 minutes from your house.
Yeah.
How do you beat that?
Yeah, and I believe him. I mean,
totally.
North Texas, there's lots of pigs, and anywhere there's water. And so, like, anywhere along the Trinity, I believe it.
Yeah. So we had a good conversation with those guys, and then we ended up packing up and heading out to Hillsboro, which is probably about an hour and 20 minutes from your house.
Yeah, a little over an hour, not bad.
And so we headed out there, and my buddy Jonathan's kind of a quiet guy, and so we're kind of telling him a little about hunting, and you can just tell he's getting in the zone. Like, he's getting ready, and he was kind of getting himself
calm and focused.
Totally getting himself mentally prepared. So we drive up there, and it's an exotics place, but it's actually a really cool spot. It's about 200 acres.
Yeah, I think it's 200 acres, but it's thick. So it's not just like 200 acres of just pasture. I mean, there is one big open field there, but the rest of it's mesquites. There's 2 creeks through it. So it's, I don't know, you'll hear people talk about, property's this size, but it hunts like this size. I would say that one's 200 acres, but it hunts like 300 or 400 acres, just based on the way it's laid out. And yeah, they mostly do high-end exotics, and it is a high fence. And so I know some people who are really opposed to that. I know some people who that's the only hunting they do. And so this isn't really about that as much. It's just, it's the closest place I knew of where we could go for one afternoon and just be like, yeah, we're going to get on some pigs.
Yeah.
Like, it's extremely likely. Because I've found them at my lease. I've found them on public land. But pigs, there's a little bit of a misconception. People think, oh, they're all over Texas, and so you just walk in the woods and there's pigs everywhere. No, a lot of times there will be areas where there's pigs tearing it up, and for 5 days they're hitting this one area, and then they never come back there again.
Yeah.
And And so this was more about consistency, and so it was a good place to go for that.
Yeah, and especially with Jonathan, his first hunt, we wanted him to at least see something. Maybe we get a shot, maybe we don't, but at least have the chance to get on something.
Because on any hunt, that's always my first goal, is not necessarily even getting a shot or getting the animal I want, but it's just like, if I saw something, it's a good day.
Totally.
Then I totally set a new baseline, and I'm like, okay, now I got to shoot.
Yeah. So we get out there, and this is kind of where the story gets going. It's kind of fun. So we decided, so my 270, I know it shoots really well, and I wanted to put Jonathan on something he had shot before and make sure that if he got the shot he wanted, he had all the confidence in the world to take it. So he was borrowing that. And then, I've heard forever, can't kill pigs with a AR-15. Can't kill pigs with a 5.56, 2.23 round. You can, but you have to have perfect shot placement, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, man, I want to try it out. So I brought my AR out, and I got some 64 grain soft nose, and I loaded it up, and I was pretty pumped up to go out and try to see if I could take down a decent sized boar.
Yeah.
With a 2.23. For the record, it can be done, and I'll tell more about it later. I don't recommend it though. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you were set up with the bow rig.
Yeah, so I had my Hoyt out there, and I've got a few tester broadheads, new Titanium X broadhead that I really wanted to test it out. And that's a cool thing about being in Texas, because testing a broadhead on a pig is really the perfect way to do it, because it's a thick, dense animal. There's no season. Like, you can go find them and hunt them in the summer, and you can usually get pretty close to them, it seems like. Now, pigs are very alert when it comes to smell, but if you're on the correct side of the wind, they can't see real well at all, and especially if they're distracted by food. They're just so gluttonous that they become hyper-focused on food. And so I was just excited for a chance to bow hunt. So I was off by myself, kind of on a quad pod, I guess, stand overlooking a corn feeder. And then Jonathan and Daniel were huddled up together like two little Eskimos in a box blind.
Well, it was funny too, because I remember when we got out we dropped Pliny off first, and the guy threw out just a ton of corn. And I remember you saying to me later, you're like, dude,
I thought that was gonna be way too. It was like a whole bag.
It was a ridiculous amount. Yeah. And sure enough, I mean, all the critters came out and they ate it.
Yeah. So
we dropped Pliny off. Jonathan and I went to the other blind. It was a 2-person blind, and it was about 50 yards away from a feeder. It was a box blind set up probably, I don't know, maybe 10 feet-ish. And so again...
10 feet high.
Yeah, 10 feet high, yeah. And so Jonathan and I, Jonathan had never hunted before, never been in this scenario, right? So everything's kind of new, and I'm kind of explaining to him what's going on. And the really cool thing about this place, this exotic ranch, was, first of all, it was gorgeous. And it was very much a thick country. There was a field that we were set up on, but it was cool because we started seeing animals come in. And that, again, is the number one goal when you're out there. So we saw some really, obviously exotic animals, but just cool-looking animals that were coming in. And we actually saw, the first thing we saw was a herd of goats, which, by the way, I still don't understand the thrill in hunting a goat, but that's...
And they've got all types for people who are into it. It's like Corsicans and Black Hawaiians, and it's just like, pick out whichever one you want.
Yeah,
they've got them all.
They're all there. So they came into the feeder first, and it was funny. There's this big black goat with these real long horns, and he was just beating up all the other ones. And so that was kind of funny to watch, and Jonathan had never seen that kind of stuff. So we're sitting there watching that, and we're texting back and forth with Pliny, and then we look behind us, and there's...
Well, before any of that, I came zooming back in on the buggy because I committed like the cardinal sin of modern bow hunting is leaving your release in the truck.
I totally forgot about that.
And it's something I'm always paranoid about because it's like leaving your car keys somewhere.
Yeah.
But then Daniel's got a fancy truck that automatically locks even the tailgate. And so I'm like, I need your keys. Got to go get my release.
Which is funny because then we put the key on the tailgate or on the back bumper, and we almost lost it. Which that would have been a nightmare.
I was like, I'm gonna put it right here, so easy to find.
So
but anyway, I got that. Headed back to my spot.
Yeah, and so then so Jonathan and I are sitting there, and we saw, I think there's 3 red stags that came up, which were really cool to see. Probably
beautiful animals.
Yeah, probably about 200 yards from us. I think we saw some female elks about another 200 yards from us, we saw a fallow doe come in, and man, that thing is goofy looking. It's like a mix between a cow and a deer and a sheep. Like it was just, and it kind of just lobbed itself in there.
Bright white.
Yeah. It was a cool looking animal, but it was at first I'm like, man, what is that thing? It's like a crossbreed.
Deer,
yeah. So Jonathan and I are sitting there talking, and we're just kind of talking about life and family, and all of a sudden I'm looking out and I'm like, dude, I see some coming in. I'm like, there's some pigs coming in off the left. So the way the feeder is set up is it's about 50 yards from the stand, and behind it there's like a barbed wire fence, but there's probably about a 15, 20-foot opening in that barbed wire where animals will come in from behind, and behind it's real thick, like woods and brush and all
swampy,
that.
yeah.
It's like swamp. There's actually a little creek that goes down through there. So that's where all the goats were coming in from and all this stuff. And then on the back end of that was all open field. So we're watching pigs come in from behind in that kind of brushy area. And I said to Jonathan, I said, hey, number one thing, right, when you're shooting, make sure you know what's behind your target. Because what you don't want to do is shoot a pig and accidentally clip another animal. That's going to cause some challenges, right? So he did fantastic with that. So I said, we were going to have him take the first shot. So we each had the ability to shoot 2 pigs. So we're going to have him take the first shot. And then if I had an opportunity right then, I'll take a shot on one as they're kind of scattering away. And then they'll probably come back out because, like Pliny mentioned, they're very gluttonous and they'll probably come back for the food.
Yeah.
So there's one pig that's kind of bleeding off to the right a little bit from where we're looking. And I was like, hey, Jonathan, when it opens up and there's goats around, I said, as soon as that thing is clear of the goats and there's none behind it, take the shot. And so, again, he's never hunted before.
And it was like at the feeder or still coming in?
No, it was at the feeder. So okay. they had been at the feeder for probably about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then this one's kind of following the corn off to the side because he had thrown corn out there as well. The guy had.
Yeah.
And so, the thing's probably trailing off probably about 15 yards from the feeder. And I said, Jonathan, whenever you're ready, take the shot. And, man, he didn't hesitate. It was awesome to see on a first-time hunt. He, boom, took the shot, hit him right in the neck. Thing went down immediately, didn't even move, flopped around a little bit. But, man, what a perfect shot on an animal.
And I'm so glad it went down that way, that when you went to the range, he got a chance to shoot that exact same rifle when it was on for sure. Because I feel like a lot of people don't shoot enough, and they go in to sight in a rifle, and it's like practicing and sighting in, and it's called kind of all this one thing where you're just kind of chasing it, and you're like, okay, I think it's good enough that I can.
Good enough.
So it's cool that he got to like practice with it, shoot it. It sounds like he shot pretty well at the range.
Yeah.
Then take out that same rifle and just have a pretty textbook shot.
Yep.
Smoke it with a big gun, a 270, and then just drop it right there. No trailing stuff, no, because I know just a lot of people who've gotten into hunting, and then when an animal runs off or you have trouble finding it, or, I mean, I've been there, you've been there.
Yep.
Anytime you're like, you think there's a success, a victory, and then there's a big question mark by it, it's discouraging.
It's very discouraging.
And so I'm really glad that his first kill on an animal went down so cleanly and just textbook.
Completely agree. He was pumped. He had a great shot, and it was cool. Everything you just described was exactly perfect. I mean, he had so much confidence taking that shot because he felt like he knew the rifle really well. He had been shooting at paper at 100 yards, and this was a 50-yard shot. So he just felt like, you know what, if I get the opportunity, I'm going to take it. And he put a really good shot on an animal and just dropped it. So that was cool. And as you know, all of you have probably seen, if you've ever taken a shot when there's a bunch of animals around, they all kind of go, man, what just happened, right? And they kind of bolt a little bit, and then maybe they'll come back. So the pigs, there was probably, 6 or 7 of them that came in, and they all just immediately scattered. And so as soon as Jonathan, this is actually funny, I don't know if you know this, so I had put my ear protection in. Pliny and I were shooting probably about 2 months ago. We were turkey hunting. We shot his 44 Magnum.
Yeah, a ported short barrel 44 mag, and we
brutal.
just heard,
yeah, for like 8 hours.
Yeah,
all we heard was just ringing. And so my ear, I'm really sensitive with my ears since then. I just want to make sure not to repeat that. So we're in a box blind, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my ear pro in. So I did, and I told Jonathan, he's never hunted. I said, Jonathan, when you take your shot, you're not even going to recognize that you don't have earbuds in, right? Because you're focused, you're excited. So he takes a shot, doesn't even recognize it. And I said, okay, I'm going to get on one right now. So I have my AR up, and I immediately get on a pig that's running away. And I didn't even think about it. Jonathan told the story later. He's like, dude, I was like searching for my earbuds instead of just putting my fingers in my ears.
And ARs are loud too.
Yeah.
And I think it's a small bullet, but it's going really fast, and it's a lot shorter barrel than most hunting barrels. So it's just,
right there.
It's 4 to 6 inches closer to you.
Yeah. So there's a little pig. He's probably about, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. He's running behind the barbed wire fence. And I've got a True Glow 1x6 scope on there. I had it, I think, zoomed into maybe 3, maybe 4. I was pretty because we were only 50 yards. So the pig was probably about 60 yards away. Took a shot on him.
And just to interrupt real quick, so for anybody who's roll into the ballistics, especially on an AR, you're running a 50-200 0.
Right.
So shooting at a target at 50 yards, even though it's a second focal plane, that's his 0, so it doesn't really matter on the BDC where he's zoomed in at.
Yeah, exactly.
But, okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good. So the pig's running. I put a shot on him, and it was a really good shot. And actually, we found him later, and it was actually a perfect shot. It was right where I wanted it to be. But the thing ran off. And this is probably a 40, 50-pound pig. And he ran off, and so I said, okay, well, I'm pretty confident in my rifle skills. Pretty sure I shot him. I saw him kind of, stumble a little bit when I shot him and change direction, so that made me feel like, okay, I got him. But I was, like you said, right, you start questioning, like, man, I thought I put a pretty good shot on him. I wonder what happened there, right? So we're sitting there, and I text Pliny, right, and we're like, hey, I don't know if I sent you a picture from the blind into the field.
I think I texted you first.
That's right.
I was like, I heard a big rifle,
Yeah.
heard a little rifle.
Yeah, you said 270, 223 in that order.
You're like, yep.
So we're texting back and forth, and we're sitting there for 20 minutes, just kind of waiting to see if something comes back. So sure enough, because pigs are gluttonous, there's about 3 of them that come through the fence on another area of the fence, not where that opening was I described later, probably about 30 yards to the left of that. And Jonathan spotted him first. He's like, oh, dude, there's more coming in. So they're kind of just looking around, chomping around, and one of them pauses. So I'm like, hey, if you don't mind, yours is dead. We can see him. He's down. Let me take another shot on one. And he's like, yeah, dude, absolutely. So there's probably a 90-pound pig, and he just paused. He had a big old thick neck, so I put it right at the base of his neck. I put a shot there where I know if I hit him well, he's done.
Yeah.
So I shot, he jumps a little bit, and then bolts. And I'm like...
So you knew you hit him.
Oh, I definitely hit him. And I'm going, boy, oh boy, like what in the world is happening right now? Because I'm not used to this. Like I'm used to, you put a good shot on an animal, maybe they go 20, 30 yards, but they're probably down in sight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we wait a little bit longer. We end up going down. We went and looked at Jonathan's, and Jonathan hates pigs. Doesn't even want to touch them.
And that was an interesting experience for me too. I feel like a lot of people have gotten into pig hunting recently because of the media or social media exposure. They're like, oh yeah, there's pigs everywhere, and you can kill as many as you want, and you can hunt them with an AR. And it's the cool factor. Totally. But for him, it was just like.
Just a seething hatred for pigs.
Yeah.
I ended up calling him, his nickname's the Pig Slayer now. So we went and looked at his, and he had shot him in the neck, and he bled out pretty good. So there's a good pile of blood underneath him, but great shot on an animal, especially for his first shot. Dropped him immediately, and he was a good-sized pig. He was probably 80, 90 pounds.
Yeah.
He was a pretty big-sized pig. So then I was like, hey, if you don't mind, let's go see if we can track the other ones, right? And silly me, I thought with a 223 round that we would actually have a blood trail that potentially we could follow. The answer to that is no. It does not exist.
Well, and I found pigs in general way harder to follow a blood trail. I've done it, but I think they're just their fur is so thick, and half the time there's just dust and mud all over them that they really just kind of soak it up. They don't leave nearly the blood trail that you would expect from a deer.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I experienced that firsthand. So I knew where I shot him, where in the fence that I shot him. We went and looked there. I didn't see anything, and I just told Jonathan, I said, look, typically, again, he's never hunted. I said, typically we would look for some droplets of blood, try to follow that, see where he ran to. So that's not going to work here. So just let's look for a body, right? And so we walked probably about 20, 30 yards from where I shot him, and Jonathan spotted him. He'd kind of tucked into a little tree and died right there. So we pulled him out on the main trail, and I was like, let's go look for the second one. So we looked for probably 40 minutes, and it was starting to get a little dark out. And I said, hey, let's go back. Let's pull the 2 pigs over by the road just so we don't lose them in the dark. So we did that, and I said, let's go and do a little bit of spot and stalking, see if we can see some more and see if we can find mine. So we never ended up finding the second one. And on the first one, there wasn't an exit wound. So the impact of the bullet was, I mean, Pliny saw this as well as he was kind of putting together some of the...
Yeah, I processed them, and basically I saw where that soft point... I mean, a 223 or 5.56, I guess this was technically a 223, but it's going so fast. It does have a lot of power, not power, but it has a lot of energy behind it. But the projectile is just not big enough to carry a lot of that energy through a thick animal like a pig. And so you tend to either with an FMJ, get great penetration, but a teeny tiny little hole because it doesn't expand, or the opposite of that, the soft point bullet, basically the second it hit something hard, it just exploded.
Yeah.
So on the entrance wound, it made it through the hide, made it through the fat, the shield. I don't remember if that one was a boar or a sow, but it made it through some fat, into the meat. It hit the shoulder bone, and then that shoulder bone had just about a 2-inch circle, just like shattered area. And then it made it into the internal cavity, but I don't even think it made it into the other shoulder.
I don't think so either.
And so it's just like, it just dumped all its energy instantly.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was, looking back on it, again, my goal was to try to hunt a pig with a 223. That
and you
worked.
did it, yeah.
I killed a pig with a 223. The second one we never found, which was disappointing.
But probably died.
Oh, I would be...
If the bullet behavior was anything like the first one.
Yeah. He probably just ran, I don't know, maybe 100 yards. Who knows? Because he was a much bigger body pig, and he ran off, and we didn't find him. But what was kind of cool is, as we were looking for him, Jonathan and I were kind of grid searching, and I had separated. We were probably, 200-300 yards apart, and I saw some movement. And my first thought was, okay, I'm going to take a shot at a pig, right? And
I say last time we were in this exact scenario, you ended up smoking a jackrabbit.
That's very true. That's very true. With a 270,
yeah,
mind you.
Yeah.
So I decided not to take the shot, and I called Jonathan. I said, dude, get over here quickly, because I really wanted Jonathan to get another shot at a pig. So he comes over, and we saw a whole kind of herd of them run through these bushes. And what Pliny said earlier, if you're in the right wind position, they won't recognize. It's so true. They couldn't see us.
Yeah, if you're downwind of them.
I was basically doing jumping jacks trying to get Jonathan to see where I was, and they just kept on walking right by. And it was funny. Eventually, so he got up, and they ended up kind of going into the woods, so we couldn't get a shot. But eventually, one of them saw me. He's like, whoop, and he just kind of bolted, and he looked like a dumb puppy dog, just like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
Get out of here.
Get out of here. So we did that, and then we saw a couple more come on the other side, and Jonathan got down and was going to take a shot. But then we were kind of looking back up towards the house to the cabin. We're like, all right, you know what? It's getting pretty late as well. We got 2 pigs on the ground. Let's call it a day. And just about that time, I get a text from Pliny.
I was like, did you hear my shot? No, I had been sitting there still as a scarecrow all afternoon, trying to be good, trying to just concentrate, not mess around on my phone a lot. But actually, it was pretty cool because I had like a whole menagerie around me after like all the corn that was on the pile in front of me. Everything came into that. I saw fallow deer. I saw whitetail. I saw a fallow. I saw 3 nice fallow bucks, all velvet, 2 chocolate, 1 white, and then several fallow does. And I got a cool video on my phone that I just posted on Instagram of a fallow doe with her fawn kind of tagging along. Then they left. I had a bison come by. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely not wild, but still really cool to see. And then a couple red deer walked by, which are just like not quite as big as elk, but their antlers are every bit as impressive. Beautiful, beautiful animals. And those actually acted the wildest of everything I saw. They came in very alert. I think the red deer was the only animal that came out and looked at me in the stand, and it was just like, I don't want anything to do with this. I walked by. Everything else never really looked up. In fact, one of the whitetail, I saw it bedded down probably about 20 yards from me. I saw it go lay down in the mesquites, and so I was just looking over it, trying to take a picture of it. And yeah, so Everything else was just pretty chill. And I think probably in the summer they don't get a lot of pressure either. But no pigs. And so I sat there and I heard Jonathan shoot, heard Daniel shoot. Probably an hour went by, heard Daniel shoot again. No pigs. A couple times I heard something kind of splashing. There's like a really small pond behind me. So I'm like, I don't know, pigs like, wallowing in the mud. So maybe that was a pig back there. But nothing ever came in from that direction. And then right at dark, I mean, I could just barely see my pin still. And we're in the middle of the summer, so I say right at dark. It was literally, it's probably 9.
9 o'clock, yeah.
I see a pig actually come out and just stand right at the edge of the tree line. And he just stood there and looked and waited for about a minute. And I think at this point, Josh, the guide out there, was like, you see anything? I'm like, hang on, I just saw something coming in right now. Texted him back. And so then this pig just, it's like he was being sneaky about it. He just walked up to the corn feeder, but to the far side, not the side that I was on. And he just came out like he was just going to grab a quick bite and left. And then, so I saw him come out, but he was facing me. And so I went ahead, clipped on my release, was sitting there ready, and he was just facing me. And then by the time he kind of moved around broadside, there was a white-tailed doe right in front of him. And I'm like, shoot. It's like, we're not even close to deer season. Don't shoot. Yeah, bad terminology there. But I'm like, we're not even close to deer season, can't try this. And so then he just kind of, for about probably another minute or two, he ate. And then he had kind of worked a full circle and turned around the other way. And the doe was still in front of him, but this time the doe had gotten a lot closer to me. And so I ranged it, and I'm like, okay, that pig is at 27. That doe is at 14, 15. So I can arc it right over the top of her, and she'll never know. So that's what I went for. And so on a pig, their vital area, you can kind of hit them anywhere in the thoracic cavity with a rifle. But with a bow, you really want to get in the heart or right in the center of the lungs if you can. You do not want to hit them high. And their vitals are lower and farther forward if you're used to whitetail hunting. And so I'm like, okay, I want to sink it. And he was slightly quartering away. So I'm like, I just want to sink it right in behind that shoulder blade. So I basically put my 30-yard pin right on the bottom of his belly. And so I was gapping it just above my 30-yard pin. Let it fly. It was obvious that I hit him. Looked like I hit him right where I was aiming. And he ran off. He didn't drop right there, but that's pretty typical. He ran the same way he came. And I knew I hit him good. And I had my GoPro running, so I've yet to look at the footage. It was getting really dark, and at about 27, 30 yards, who knows? He may just be a little dot on there. You might not be able to see it too good. And I didn't have illuminated nocks either. That would have been nice. But I'm like, I know I hit him pretty good, so we'll see. And so I gave it a little bit because I'm like, I could tell it was a boar because he came out by himself, and he was pretty good size. So I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to go walk up on him if he's wounded.
Yeah.
And so when I finally did, I actually walked up on him. I had a revolver with me, so I went ahead and had that pulled out. And I walked down the trail where I saw him run, walked about 5 yards down the trail, and I saw him piled up right there. So I'm like, heck yeah.
Sweet.
That's as good as it gets. I mean, for a brand new broadhead that I never shot at an animal before, put it basically where I wanted. I hit a little bit farther forward, and that may have been he was quartering a little bit differently than I thought, or it may have just been I swung the shot a little bit left, but I ended up putting it right through his shoulder. It went through both shoulders, and I found the arrow on the ground right behind him, stuck in the dirt, great blood on it. I didn't really follow the blood trail. I just kind of walked in the woods, started looking for a pig, and there he was. So walked up to him with my revolver out, walked up, kicked him in the ass just to make sure, because if he wasn't dead, I wanted at least like a 2-second head start to run like hell. And obviously he didn't flinch. Looked at the shot. It was pretty much right where I wanted. Dragged that thing out to the road. As soon as I got it out to the road, I was standing there waiting, and Josh was going to come pick me up in the buggy. And then I was sitting there waiting, and I thought I heard something else. And sure enough, some other little pigs were coming in. They never quite came into the feeder, but I had my pistol out because one of my goals, and I remember talking to Kyle about this, was wanting to get a hog kill with a pistol. And I literally pulled it out, and I'm like, I can't see my sights. I really wish I had my 9mm with night sights on here right now. But my revolver, obviously way more powerful, better choice for hunting, but I'm like, I can't see my sights at all. So I got as close to the feeder as I dared. I was probably 8 yards away from the feeder, so I could kind of silhouette my sights under the green light that was attached to the feeder. I'm like, that way if one happens to run right here, I got him.
Yep.
But at that point, I don't know if they had heard me move or they just didn't like it or smelled me. And I was just kind of seeing some little dots out there running around. So I think it was just like little bitty piglets, but they didn't come in. And it was okay. It was already probably 9:15 at that point anyway.
Yeah.
So threw that pig in the back of the buggy, picked it up, felt heavy, but what we'll realize is I'm really bad at judging the weight of pigs. And I think even on my GoPro, I was recording it, and I'm like, well, Daniel shot that one last week, and I thought that was like 90, and it ended up being like 148. So this one's probably like 130 something. Like, that's pretty good. But I was way off. So
Well, I think you even texted me. You said, I got one. Think he's about the same size as yours was last week.
Yeah. And I was trying to, I don't know. I guess I get a little bit irritated about the guys who are like, yeah, I shot one and it was like 150. And then you walk up and you're like, that thing's 70 pounds.
Yeah, it's like a 70-pound pig, man.
And so I'm always afraid of guessing high, I guess. On deer, I'm pretty good at guessing them because we used to bet on it in hunting camp. So as a kid, I'd be like, yeah, I can win like $3 tonight. Get some candy money or something. So I'm pretty good with deer, but not with pigs, apparently. So we threw that sucker in the back, pulled up on Jonathan and Daniel, kind of on the other side of the ranch. They had very politely drug theirs all the way back and left them like laying down in a row right below the feeder. Like, oh, that's nice. So picked them up, threw them in the back, drove back to camp. Anything else happen on the way back?
No, I don't think so. We saw a couple of things just kind of scatter away, but we got back to camp and started cutting them up. And it was funny because Pliny is really bad at guessing the weight
apparently
of a pig. And he's like, dude, so we dropped all three of them out of the buggy. I'm like, dude, that's a massive pig. Like, that's a really big pig. And
it's pretty good.
It's all right. And I'm looking at him next to Jonathan's probably 80 or 90 pound one and my 40 or 50 pound one. I'm like, dude, that's a big pig. And so we end up putting it on the scale.
Yeah, like 205?
205. Yeah, he was a big
Somewhere
boy.
between 201 and 208. It was kind of like bouncing around.
Yeah. So
way bigger than I thought.
We got them up. We skinned them out. We took all the meat off, and it was funny. Jonathan has never hunted, never been in a hunting camp, never been around this stuff. And so, he was kind of just watching us do it. And we were drinking a beer, and at one point I remember turning to him, I'm like, what do you think? He's like, dude, this is crazy and like super cool all at the same time, right? Because you think about it, right? For people that aren't around this stuff, it's kind of a shock. You're like, wait a second. Like, when I think of animals, they're in movies and they're like the heroes of the movies, and there's two of them strung up by their neck with, their entire innards showing.
And the way we process them is for efficiency, I guess. We hung them by the head, just trying to, like, from their back, trying to just take them apart without gutting them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's not a pretty picture.
No, it's not. But it's very effective.
Yeah. And so I was like, uh-oh, is Jonathan like, I don't know, does he just not like this part of it? Or is he, puking his guts out somewhere? And I don't know. It's thinking back to like the first time I saw somebody skin a deer, I probably didn't like it, and I probably got pretty queasy. But then after I tasted the meat and appreciated the hunt, and more, it just got to where like I was saying tonight, I just view it as like this kind of cool little machine that you're just taking it apart.
Yeah.
So we got them done. It didn't take terribly long. We weren't quick either, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
So got them cleaned out, thrown on ice. Anything else happen while we were out there?
No, I think that was it. And we started heading back, and everyone kind of got tired because it was about midnight.
Yeah, and then you hit Dallas traffic, and you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah, at midnight, during the coronavirus, it was there was probably 10,000 people on the road.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. But we got back, and I think out of that, what did you say? You got 50 pounds after you deboned 11 of the quarters?
Not including the back straps at all.
Yeah.
So I didn't weigh the back straps, but so we had basically 11 quarters because one of them was shot up pretty good. And so
that
I got
little one with the 223 round.
Yeah, so I got a little bit of meat off that, and I made the mistake of like, so we like keeping it on ice for a couple days with deer. Probably 7 to 10 days is ideal, maybe even a little bit more. With pigs, it definitely doesn't need that much, but I'd say usually probably 3 is ideal, just enough for it to bleed out a bit, so you're not freezing it with all that blood in there. And then, I was like, I'm going to just do them all tonight. So I put on some other podcasts and I was starting to get tired. And I'm like, okay, I got 2 more. I gotta keep going, keep going.
I got to get it done.
And so probably the last couple I did were kind of sloppy. Like there was probably still some meat on the bone. And so probably some nice dog bones still left after that. But got them all done. And then, the boneless meat was exactly 50 pounds. And then probably about 15 more pounds on back straps. And then actually tonight we had tacos.
Yep.
That was one of those back straps. Well, a pair of those back straps off the littlest pig.
Yeah, man, those are delicious. So Pliny had told me about this last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, when I shot the boar down at his place. We smoked one of the shoulders, and then we smoked one of the back straps, and then I had grilled one of the back straps, and it was a little tough when I grilled it. When we smoked it, it was better, but it was still a little tough. He's like, dude, there's this way that you can basically make pulled pork in a pressure cooker. And I'm like, man, that sounds awesome. So we were texting, we're like, let's just do dinner and make tacos, make pulled pork tacos. And that's what we did tonight. It came out fantastic.
Well, and the impetus for dinner was I had left my Costas, my GoPro, and my gloves all in Daniel's truck. He's like, you probably want these. And I'm like, yeah, and I still got some of those back straps. You probably want those. I mean, I know if this was a trade, you'd for sure get the better side of this deal. But, so I was trying to find time to catch up, and I was working from home still and had all these calls. And then ultimately it ended up being like, hey, let's just do dinner. And so it was nice cooking up these pork loins, I guess is technically what people call them on pigs, not back straps. Super easy in the Instant Pot. So basically I just took the loins, cleaned them up, cut off most of the silver skin. I wasn't super picky about getting all of it because of the way I was cooking it. Cut them up into about fist-sized chunks, put them in the pressure cooker, did half apple cider vinegar, half water. Set the pressure cooker for, I think it was 25 minutes, which means probably about an hour in the pot total, because that's 25 minutes once it gets up to pressure. So did that, then let it cool down, pulled them out, and at that point they were super tender and kind of already falling apart, so I just kind of pulled them apart with my fingers, threw them back in the pot. And since we were doing tacos, I just did salt, pepper, garlic, cumin, and some chili lime seasoning that I got at Trader Joe's. So nothing fancy, super easy, and just kind of stirred that back in there. And actually, that little pig was so lean, I put some avocado oil back in there.
Okay.
Just because you kind of got to add a little bit of fat back to the mixture. So threw that in there. Then came over, and you pulled out the griddle, and we just threw some corn tortillas on the griddle, cheese, guacamole, onions, fresh cilantro.
Cilantro's the key.
Yeah, man, fresh cilantro is so good. And so, that combination,
fantastic.
I thought it was great, and maybe I'm just so used to wild game that I just have a taste for it. I don't know, but
it tasted phenomenal. It was. I mean, for what it is, thinking about. We should tell the story about when I shot that pig. He pooped a little bit.
Yep, that happened.
Because he got scared of the .223 round, just like someone would be scared of a BB gun getting shot at him.
Yeah.
And so
Jonathan, he shot one with the 270 and just dropped it right there, and then Daniel shot a 223 and just scared the shit out of him.
So that one didn't smell great, and so taking it from there to what it turned out to be, it was like, man, that's a good tasting meal right there.
Yeah.
That's a really good tasting meal.
Well, and some people just leave them to lie in the pasture and don't collect the meat. And I think, I don't know, not to get all bent on the ethics of it, but I think if you're going out there to hunt, you should make a conscious effort to do that. If it's good meat, and I know there's people who are like, yeah, there's people in China and Africa starving and they love good meat and don't be wasteful. And it's not that. It's more just if you're going to go intentionally kill an animal that has meat on it, at least make an effort to do so.
Absolutely.
And I think with pork, there are some people who have tried it and it's not been good, and a lot of times you're probably just doing it wrong. The only pig I've ever had that's just been straight up nasty was one that was caught in a trap, and it was in the trap all day long, and then we killed it that night.
Was it bacon in the sun?
It was bacon in the sun. That was bacon in the shade, I think. But either way, the meat did not smell good. A lot of times the hide will not smell good.
Yeah.
just because they're rolling in mud and like they're not clean animals. But then usually once you get the hide off and you just have a piece of meat, it just smells like meat. It's not gross. That's the only bad one I've ever had, and I've probably killed a dozen pigs since then, and they've all been fine. Yeah. So overall, it was a good experience going out, killing
quick
some
Saturday
pigs.
night trip.
Yeah,
that was fun. About an hour and a half away, so we got to get back for sleep time.
Yeah, a little bit of sleep time, and then I got it all dropped off at the processor. Again, brought this one to Kubi's in Dallas, and so man, we've got breakfast sausage, fajita sausage, jalapeno cheddar, a little bit of everything. Really, it's gonna be good. Yeah, and it'll be, I had 8 full gallon Ziploc bags full of meat, and it filled up my cooler. And so by the time they add fat to it, seasoning to it, and it's in links and packaging and stuff, like it'll at least be a full Yeti cooler size. Yeah, like that'll be a lot of meat.
It's gonna be a lot of meat. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and so coming out of this, I think neither one of us feel like we're done. We both want to kill more pigs because it's a blessing of Texas. Like there's so many of them that, if you can find a time or place or, even throw down some cash to go get on them sometimes, it's just a heck of a lot of fun. And so you've been texting me all week about like, well, I got my goal down of killing one with a 223 just to prove I could, but now you've been texting me about 6.5 Grindle, so kind of researching that a little bit.
Yeah, so when I got home, I decided, I've got entirely too many 223s, and I decided to start culling my collection a little bit. And so I started doing that. I sold a couple of them already this week, which was good. And now what I want to do is build up.
You just glossed over that, but it's man, I don't know anybody who can sell and trade guns like this guy. Like, Saturday night, you were like, maybe I'd want to sell this and then maybe eventually get something else. And then by noon on Monday, you're like, I sold 2. Holy smokes.
Well, so I look at rifles now from an appreciation of what's the usefulness of them. Yeah. Right. Whereas before it was like, oh man, I'm like a kid in a candy shop, right? I love more. ARs. Yeah. ARs are so cool. And I ended up having a few of them. I'm like, man, what do I have these for? I can't even take down a 40-pound pig with it effectively. Yeah. And so I started researching the 6.5 Grendel round, and man, that's a sweet looking round. So I've decided I've got a lower that I had a 300 blackout upper on. I'm going to switch gears with that because I think I'll build a 300 blackout pistol instead. But with that lower, I think I'm going to put a 6.5 Grendel upper on it, and I want to just try that round because the thing that I like about it is much more effective than a 223. Yeah. In an AR platform, not as terminal, I guess, as a 300 blackout from like 70 yards and in, but it can get out to 300 yards plus and have a lot of terminal ballistics still, which is really exciting to me because I think the difference between that and a 300 blackout on a pig is going to be minimal, but I can stretch it out in an AR platform pretty far.
I think under 100 yards it'd probably be pretty minimal, but the 6.5 Grendel's definitely way more efficient. Right. Like if you look at where they overlap, like a 120 grain bullet, they can both shoot their version of a 120 grain bullet. They'll both be great up to 100 yards. Or I was out there and I got mine out to 300, hitting a 1 inch or
your 300 blackout.
Yeah, 1 foot plate, and it did fine out there, but it's definitely dropping a lot more. I was using the bottom rung of my BDC reticle versus that 6.5 Grendel is going to be pretty flat shooting, and it's just going to hit a lot harder. Yeah. So I think it'll be a fun project.
Yeah, hopefully the next hunt that we do, pig hunt that we do, I'll have that thing put together. And unfortunately, I sold some ARs that were some of my nicer ARs, and now I'm looking at some guns that Pliny turned me on to, which I'm starting to realize that I need to make a lot more money in life if I want some of these guns.
Man, some of that boutique stuff, really.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It takes some bread.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Well, I think we're not done killing the pigs. We're done for the moment, but I think there will be more pigs killed before too long. But just fun to get out there for a quick trip and end it with some good tacos and some good stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a fun time.
Yep. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Till next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.